Today is a pretty killer new guitar day because we're going to be checking out my new LTD MT-1, the Mick Thomson signature model. So my formative guitar years, I absolutely loved Slipknot, still do, and my favorite member was Mick Thomson. He brought that death metal edge. This will date me, but I do remember when Volume 3 came out when I was in high school. It was a huge deal for all of us metal guys and guitar players. I remember learning those songs and some tracks off of the self-titled album, which I had really loved, and Iowa, all really helped me progress as a guitar player. Plus there were great riffs that I loved to play, and that death metal edge, especially in those early albums, especially something like Iowa, and like the cool really heavy riffs on something like the self-titled album. A lot of that was Mick. I mean, pretty much the first album was Mick. I mean, Jim didn't join the band until into the recording process of that album, I believe. So definitely Mick was always my favorite and best influence from that band. And I've always wanted one of his signature guitars. He's had a couple different ones over the years, and none of them, I had never had the opportunity to pick up any of them, but none of them spoke to me as much as this one did. So I am stoked to have this bad boy. Now, when the announcement for these went up and what the specs were, I immediately knew I was going to jump on it and get one, because I did used to have an MH-1000 NT that I got on and used on the channel last year a lot, and there were a few things I wish that were different about it, and I even brought up some of them in the video for that guitar, for some things I wish were different, and this basically addressed every single one of them. So it has, first of all, a hip shot bridge, and not just a hip shot, my favorite hip shot. So the Ibby High Mass bridge. This is my favorite bridge. I've talked about this before. I've had a few guitars with them. I currently have a couple and with this bridge, and it is so good for a few different reasons. One, it's a big chunk of brass. Brass is always great for instruments. It's just a really good resonant metal, and it's nice to have a big substantial amount of it here. I think hip shots are great because they feel super good on the hand, especially this high mass one, because it has big rounded edges, and it just feels almost like you're playing on something like a Floyd or like an Ibanez kind of edge style bridge. It's just really smooth and gets out of your way. Hip shot bridges are also super easy to intonate, because you have individual screws for each one of them here in the back and not in the front underneath the strings. And then, of course, each string saddle you can adjust the height of individually, so you can really dial these things in super easy, super quick, and very accurately. And speaking of hip shot, we do have these grip lock open gear tuners in the back where you can kind of see the open gear brass on there. Hopefully that's shown up on camera, but super accurate, great locking tuners, fantastic. So some of the features of this awesome guitar here that I also really liked in comparison to some of the other LTDs I've tried or owned over the years, it has, even though this body is gloss, the neck is matte, and there's actually a nice kind of hard line down there where you can see the difference between the matte and the gloss. Not sure if that's shown up here. If it's not, I'll pop up a picture, but you can kind of see that on camera where it goes from the high gloss to the matte there. That makes it so it's just super fast, not sticky at all back here, while also still having that really nice gloss finish that's not going to shine up and change on you when you're playing a bunch over the years. Has that reverse headstock, which I prefer, and I really like what they did here with just the nice black to contrast against what this finish is called is obsidian metallic. So it's this kind of gray, like almost gunmetal kind of color, but it has this nice metal flake pop in it that I think looks really good. It's harder to get it to show up on camera. Let's see if I can get it there, but it looks super good in person. You're seeing some of the flake there. But yeah, just having that with the reverse headstock and just the nice black with the MT-1 and the LTD logo as finish and not something that's raised on it. As a Graphtec Tusk nut on here, has a Macassar ebony fretboard, so super nice and dark and glassy. 24 jumbo stainless steel frets, and the neck is 25.5-inch scale length, which I think is ideal for 6-string guitars, at least for myself. I do already like to have guitars that are 6 strings in C standard tuning, which is basically mixed tuning here. So I now have this in drop B, which is just C sharp standard, but with the B dropped. Anyone that's worried that if this is going to handle the tuning or anything like that, it handles it fine. It's intonated just perfect. This thing is actually, the setup on it was fantastic. The intonation was almost perfect. So it came just with a set of 10s on it, but I swapped over to what I like with my MYXLs for something a bit heavier for B, and I was pleasantly surprised that every single string except one of them was like dead on intonated, and the other one was super close. So it took very minimal adjustment. The string heights were right. The neck angle is great. The neck relief, I mean, is basically dead perfect. I didn't really have to touch the setup at all. The only weird thing is, especially because this is for a signature for a guy that plays in drop B and drop A pretty much exclusively, the low 2 nut slots were slightly not wide enough for the thicker strings, so I had to very delicately go in with a piece of folded up sandpaper and kind of widen them because I don't have a nice nut file on me. But that just struck me as weird. It's something I've never really had to do. I didn't have to do with my LTD MH-1000 either, so just little something that was off there, but took me about maybe 5-10 minutes to dial it in. And I used to work building guitars for a large company, so adjusting nut slots wasn't anything hard for me, but might be hard for somebody in future, and it would suck to have to take your new guitar to a luthier or potentially screw it up. Something I thought was nice is it comes with these nice Goto strap locks. I did a little unboxing video, and they have the other parts of these inside of the case. It also did come with a very nice ESP case, which I thought was great, a hard case. I like that it has this little angled notch here at the fretboard. I think that just adds a little bit of extra something. And it's just a single pickup. I mean, because who needs cleans, right? We just want that bridge pickup for the chugs. Now, you'll notice that even though it only has the one pickup, it still has a switch. Well, this isn't a pickup selector. This is a voice selector. It switches between voicings, but also like a low end thing, because this is the Fishman Fluence Mick Thomson signature, which I had that set on here on the channel and used it a bunch last year. I really like this pickup. It is one of my most favorite Fishman pickups. It's definitely top 3 for me. It's nice because it's high output, definitely active kind of feeling, but more organic, less compressed, like that Fishman thing. It doesn't have that mid-range kind of quack or nasalness that say the modern has, which is something I touched on, which I personally like that because it's like hitting an amp with a tube screamer if it needs it, but I understand if it doesn't need it, or if you don't have it dialed in, you might not like it. It's nice about this pickup here, this one doesn't have that. Has a much smoother mid-range, has a very nice upper mid-range bite to it without ever seeming nasal. It's definitely really dialed in and nice. And then the low end for this is interesting because that's part of what this switch does. So the middle and bottom positions switch between essentially not 2 different low ends. It's not like a bass boost where you get more bass or less bass. It kind of shifts where the bass like resonance peak is. And I feel like in the center, it's much more where like probably around like 60, 70 hertz, maybe even 80, where the palm mutes kind of live, and the palm mutes kind of feel chunkier and bigger there. And then when you shift it, it seems to move it. I'm not sure where it goes on the frequency spectrum, but it seems to be a bit tighter of a sound. It's hard to really, it's not like a massive tonal shift. I'll try and show it in the out of mix. You should definitely be able to hear that one's not quite as full of a palm mute as the other. But really, it just kind of comes down to preference and how it feels. I don't think anyone would be able to really pick it out in a live scenario or recording. It's more about how it feels, how it responds to you as a player. And then the top position on here is going to be the more passive voice 2. It's like a low output kind of passive kind of thing. And that's great if you want to have something maybe a little less searing, not slamming your amp super hard. It's great for cleans, pairs well with a fuzz, which I know Mick Thomson like, because typically a lot of fuzz pedals, you don't want to be absolutely slamming those. And then there is a push-pull pot, so it can go to the voice 3, which is that very nice coil split. Now, as for the woods in this thing, this is a mahogany body with a white ash top. And because of that, I do like mahogany bodied guitars a lot of the time. I have several of them now, but it has definitely more weight to it than say my MH-1000 did, or even my EC Black Metal that I had back in the day did. Both of those were fairly light. They weren't like, you know, too light where it felt like a toy or had a bunch of neck dive, but this is definitely heavier, which I prefer. This is probably about 7.5, maybe even approaching 8 pounds. I was pleasantly surprised that it was chunkier. And then this neck is a 3-piece maple neck, so it's definitely going to be pretty rock solid. And then just like on my MH-1000, it has a nice thin U shape. I like U and C shapes because it has that roundness to cup the hand. The U, as you can imagine, though, is just a little bit flatter in the back. So I think that feels super good. And this also does have a compound radius. I forgot to mention that before. So it's, I believe, 300 to 400 millimeter. So super flat. This feels really modern and super fast. And just, it's one of the most easy to play necks I've ever touched. This thing is just such a joy to play. It completely gets out of your way. When I was sitting down writing some riffs for that in mix, which hopefully, you know, I channeled Mick Thomson enough. I was trying to really channel, you know, his vibe. So I think I kind of got close, but this just completely got out of my way and allowed me to write some cool stuff. And I think that's awesome that I was immediately inspired, and this thing just plays so effortlessly. I wish I could really convey, but that's hard to, you know, really talk about on camera. One other thing I'll say about the playability of the neck as well is basically the fret job is perfect. There isn't a sharp or intrusive fret on here at all. Everything feels perfectly rounded. It all looks really great. It's polished perfectly, so everything is nice and glassy. I mean, I love stainless steel frets for just how glassy they feel and how much they'll stand up to a life of punishment. And there's not a high fret on the thing. It's everything on it. It just feels perfect. I mean, I've kind of come to expect that from South Korean made guitars for not just LTDs, but plenty of different brands. Some of my favorite guitars in the world have been made in that same factory. And this is just holding up to that same legacy. All in all, absolutely fantastic guitar that I am completely in love with and stoked to have on the channel. And it's nice to have something else a little bit more active again, because pretty much everything else I have, except for one other guitar, is passive. So it's nice to have that option here on the channel and just something to play myself. Like I said, this comes with a case, comes with all these cool features. Now, you might be thinking with some of the pricing from LTD and ESP that this might be closer to 2,000, 1,700, 1,800. I actually think they really knocked it out on the pricing for this. All of these features and a hard case, it's $15.99 US at the time of recording this. When you compare that to just, I believe most of the 1000 series is already at like $14.99, something like that. And you're getting a hard case and all these extra features with this. And you compare that to some other brands and some offerings that they have around the same price point. I think this is definitely well priced for the market for what it is, and a fantastic instrument that I think they really nailed. Anyway, that is absolutely enough rambling about all the features and how much I absolutely love and adore this thing. We'll just kind of mess with it in the out of mix. So just like I did for the in mix, I'm going to be plugging into this directly into my Ingalls Savage Mark II 120 watt, and that's going to be going into the lead channel for all the gain tones. Then we'll hear it on the clean channel a bit for some of the clean tones. And on that clean channel, I'll be running a Strymon Blue Sky reverb, just because dry clean tones are boring. When I'm playing around with that, I'm going to try and do some chugs on the high gain channel and flip around with that low end so you can kind of hear what I was talking about with those palm mutes shifting a bit. And I'll even do that a little bit with the clean where it should be a little bit more apparent. And then all of that's going to be going into my Two Notes Captor X, which does have a DV77, which is Mick's signature speaker and has been my favorite speaker since it came out, and a little bit of a VM1265, which is done by Omega, which is his guitar tech's company. Let's just kind of mess around with some of the tones and how this thing sounds and play around with some riffs. What an incredible instrument. Truly, it sounds so good going into my Engel Savage Mark II. I really couldn't be happier with it. Well, there's one thing. This is still here. I don't know why so many companies insist on having this volume on right here underneath the bridge pickup. If we could just move that back out of the way, that'd be great. But other than that, it's basically perfect. I am so happy I decided to jump on this one and finally get my own Mick Thomson signature. I pre-ordered this way back in January. It came to me at the end of May. It was cool too. I wasn't expecting it until like June, maybe July. And then I get this email from my Sweetwater guy. Shout out to my Sweetwater guy. And I was just a bunch of pictures of this exact one. They had just gotten done doing their inspection, took a bunch of pictures of it for me and sent it to me, and then all of a sudden I have this at my doorstep. So I was overjoyed to get it early. It was definitely worth the wait, and I would highly recommend it. I'm gonna have a link down below if you want to check this out. I am also a Sweetwater affiliate, although they didn't send this to me. I just paid for it, paid full price. Happy to, great guitar. But I will have an affiliate link if you'd like to check this out or anything else from LTD or Sweetwater at all. Get yourself something cool. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it would potentially help me here on the channel if you like what I'm doing. But I'd love to know your thoughts, if you're digging this, if you like this set of features or the music or anything like that. If you're a Slipknot fan, have any of his other signatures and what you think about this in comparison. But any and all thoughts down below. But thanks for watching. Stay metal.